Been in the news over the past few weeks regarding an investigation of Minister of Public Enterprises Pravin Gordhan. The matter is of public interest because of Gordhan's long-standing claims of widespread state capture and his appearance before the Zondo Commission, and that will be happening on Monday. The impression that members of the media and the public have is that Pravin Gordhan may be implicated in acts of corruption, or alternatively that he is being intimidated by the public protector. But what is going on? The public protector is one role that in itself attracts public attention and comment. But what is the office all about? To talk about the office and the role of the public protector is the Deputy Advocate Kevin Malunga, who's with me on the program. Pleasure to be with you, Advocate.
Yes.
Taken us some time to get to this point.
To catch up again.
Yeah. So it's 6 years for you in the position.
Absolutely.
It will be 7 years from next year, from 2019.
December 2019.
Right.
Yes.
So you'll have completed
my term.
Your term. And it's been a very interesting ride, I think.
Oh, it's been a very, very interesting journey.
Yeah.
You know, when I bump into security guards in shopping centers and malls and domestic workers and etc., they always ask me, "Nebabopanin," you know.
Yeah.
So I've become the face of one of the faces of governance in the country.
And actually, they're right to ask you, how do you feel? I mean, when they see you, they know that you are doing the work as the office of the public protector.
Yes.
But they ask, when are you arresting?
Yes, but of course we don't do arresting.
Exactly, but I want you to differentiate that, because the expectation every time we hear the public protector is doing 1, 2, 3, members of the public expect you to then take it to its conclusion, which would be prosecution.
Yes, absolutely. So I think it's great that it's seen that way. We are one of the institutions supporting democracy in terms of Chapter 9 of the South African Constitution. And Section 181 and 182 of the Constitution provides for institutions that will safeguard constitutional democracy. But in particular, the public protector is there to be able to investigate any allegation of impropriety against any state organ. So it's about 1,000 organs of state from your, at all levels, national executive, provincial, local government, state-owned enterprises. All that is,
as long as it's about the state,
yes,
investigate,
and where the state money is involved and so forth, statutory bodies. So, and of course, what we do is the Constitution says we're supposed to investigate, report, and take remedial action, right? So, and there's an enabling legislation that is the Public Protector Act, which lays out some of the different categories of impropriety, as it were, including improper conduct relating to public money, acts or omissions by a person performing a public function. It's quite broad. Our fingers are in everything because the law allows us. So anyone who has a problem with the state can come to us.
Do you have the capacity to do the work?
Well, we have... I like to say we've been punching above our weight, certainly during the period that I've been in this role for the past almost 6 years. Firstly, with working with the former public protector, Adv Kevin Malunga, and the current, and of course, things like Nkandla and state capture and all these other reports, it really created this, it blew up the consciousness among the public in terms of to know what
the amount of work you're supposed to do and the extent of your powers.
Absolutely. And as a result, South Africa, I like to say South Africa is now a very litigious society in a way, in the sense that they can bring things to us, and we don't have enough resources.
Well, I'm asking for a friend.
Yes.
Who works for the West Rand municipality.
Yes.
Who wants to report the fact that they've not been paid because money was taken to VBS.
And
what did you know about it? Did anybody complain? Is it a matter that you take a look at?
Well, we are investigating the municipalities that invested in VBS, because remember, we have jurisdiction over state-owned enterprise, and the public protector, she announced just 2 weeks ago that we're going to be going in and pursuing the decision making and the impropriety, the alleged impropriety that led to public money being wasted, as it were. So, and obviously we don't have jurisdiction over the private sector aspect of it. And look, it's good you're asking that question, because it resonates and shows the kind of damage that corruption, that improper conduct by state officials can do. In other words, it affects your friend who is now unable to get a salary. We have since my time starting, there was a time when the Limpopo government, when I started this role, the Limpopo government was, if I recall, was battling to pay salaries, and it was under administration.
So it's not new from your point of view.
Yes,
right?
that's exactly what happens.
But here's the point, Advocate. I mean, there's a sense in the country that things got worse at a particular time. Is it true? Or is it just the same for you? Is now 6 years into your job the same as it was the first year?
Well,
in terms of the levels of corruption that you've come across?
There's a heightened sense of consciousness. But of course, I must admit that that previous administration that has just left, I like to say it was the gift that kept on giving, in the sense that the blunders were many. People know about Nkandla, of course. That was a very badly managed project by the State Department of Public Works and so forth. And of course, the way it was managed by people who had to try then to explain. Then the former president then admitted, said, "No, I'll pay." You know, after all, people have been defending left, right, and center, compromising their own reputations and so forth. So, but that's not. And then, of course, the state capture then creeps in. We then produce a report that says, form this commission, because we don't have the resources nor the time. So it's been something that's of, as I said, it's a combination of an increase in impunity, but also an increase in the level of awareness by people.
And the willingness to take action against the, I suppose you could say, you know, we shouldn't forget the Zondo Commission was established as a result of the recommendation from the Public Protector's Office. That's a very important point to note. Now, the invitation to the Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan, to your offices by the current Public Protector. Can you explain that? Because it seems to have caused controversy, the understanding or misunderstanding around it. Just explain, because I see, especially social media, people say, yeah, now it's time for Pravin Gordhan, who's been saying we must join the dots, to be nailed. He himself is corrupt, and the Public Protector must take action against him. What actually is the story?
Yeah, you know, in this role, the other thing, what you have to do is have very thick skin. And when the Twitter brigade start their funny things, you just, you know, you focus on the Constitution and the law. So the Minister, Pravin Gordhan, is one of the members of the executive, over which we have jurisdiction as the Public Protector. We have jurisdiction over the President, we can summon anyone who is in the public sector, in fact, actually anyone in the Republic, for the purposes of an investigation. So there is nothing sinister about him being invited, because there is a complaint in the system against him, and of course we can investigate and call anyone for that purpose. So the ideal, if I was a member, and if I can advise members of the executive in future, when you get this kind of thing, don't make a lot of noise about it. Just come to the Public Protector and answer what you have to answer. Because in terms of the law, you are all equal before the law. And that is the role of the institution. It's not a question of trying to nail people. So if
not a witch hunt.
No. And if you have answers, you answer. You know, that's as simple as that. So I beg to differ with the media narrative that's saying, no, this is a witch hunt and so forth. We don't have control over who complains to us. Remember, this is a complaint. So there, Brad Tim, that's where the politics plays out.
But here's the point
in
again,
the sense that,
Advocate, that I suppose the whole matter of Pravin Gordhan, not with the fact that he as well questioned why he was being invited, might have caused the frenzy that it did. But on top of that was the fact that former Minister Malusi Gigaba ultimately resigned from his position, and it appears it had to do with the public protector, that once the public protector calls you, hey, might be very difficult for you to keep your position. You know, they might come up with recommendations that you should resign. So,
yes, and I don't think people should be excited about that in a negative way. They should actually be happy about the fact that these checks and balances exist in this country, that you don't have the kind of impunity where, for example, let's say just across the border in Zimbabwe, I was born, I know that place very well, where Mugabe was God. You didn't ask him anything, you know. So what is good about that is that there is an Executive Members Ethics Act, there is the Public Protector Act, which says that you call people in, right? You can investigate any allegations and so forth against a member of the executive. And he was called in that context, not because of, and of course there are complaints. As I'm saying, the challenge is that, just like the courts, we are not immune from being used as a political football by complainants.
Yes,
so what we don't lose sight of that, but we use the Constitution and the law at all times to actually ensure that we don't get caught up in as the minister said, malicious complaints. If the complaint is malicious, at the end of our investigation, we'll be able to figure that out. That is
when you will pronounce.
Yes,
whether
we will pronounce that.
And for the members of the public, when a request or a matter is reported to yourselves for investigation, we shouldn't think that it implies wrongdoing on the part of the person who's been reported.
No,
because
absolutely.
we may conclude,
absolutely,
as seems to be the case, that, aha, here's another one being nailed.
Yes, they must wait for the investigation to unfold and be done and be completed, because it's done in accordance with the law. We have about 400 people working for us. It's one of the biggest law firms in the country, as it were. So it's not, things are not a thumb suck. We pride ourselves, certainly during the time, and certainly my approach to this whole thing is that we ensure that there is rigor and checks and balances, and we ensure that the law is applied properly. Remember, there's still an opportunity. One of the advantages of all the litigation that has come through, we had the Nkandla versus EFF, the EFF versus Speaker judgment, commonly known as the Nkandla judgment. Which affirmed how this plays out, in the sense that if you don't like a public protector report, you can take it on review. So whoever has a problem with findings, remedial action, you can still take it on. So there are these wonderful checks and balances. But I've been even preaching to my investigators to say, look, our investigations must be litigation proof. We must actually write good reports that can stand judicial scrutiny.
Sure.
And so we are in that space where we try to do a lot of quality assurance.
I will be talking to you about governance and ethical conduct on the part of those in leadership positions, the role of the Office of the Public Protector itself, and the people that you recruit when we continue with our conversation. My guest is Kevin Malunga, who is the Deputy Public Protector, and we will be continuing our chat. Also take part, the hashtag is the Mudisa Network.